Today, I'm excited to have Pat Zingarella on the show. He is the CEO of Invest Clearly, and he and his business partners have created an awesome new product that helps investors like you do an integral part of your due diligence process. And so, Invest Clearly is designed to give you insight into the actual person that you're going to be investing with by providing verified reviews from other investors who've actually invested with that person in the past. So I'm going to let him share all the details, and we're going to get into that conversation. But I got to say, this is a really great one. This is a product that I think is going to play a huge role and is really going to be kind of a market dominator in this space. So if that's something you're looking at and you're looking for some help doing due diligence, go to investclearly.com and also check the description for my due diligence guide below. Without further ado, let's get into the conversation. All right, Pat, thanks for being here. I'm glad to have you on because, so far most of our guests have been general partners, guys with stuff that they're, at the end of the day, they're pitching, right? They have a business that they're trying to raise money for, and you are coming from an entirely different perspective. So Pat, first off, tell me how to say your last name.
Zingarella. And hey, I could pitch if you want. I'm happy to pitch
Zingarella,
Invest
okay.
Clearly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, your pitch will be an entirely different, experience for our listeners today. And so, I'd love to start off with one. First off, just tell me, who you are and what you do currently at a really high level. Because once they know that, I want to start more from the beginning, how you got there, what you saw was needed, and kind of let people see that progression of what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, thank you for having me on. It's been great getting to know you and Clotine, and I got to meet you in person at Best Ever, so that was really cool. So I'm the CEO of Invest Clearly. What we are is we are a directory of GPs. Our goal is every GP that's ever existed will be on the site, regardless of their participation. And then LPs that provide undeniable proof that they have invested with the GP can write reviews on them. And so the value prop to both parties, to the LP, it's really a centralized location where people can go in, input investment preferences, and create a short list of sponsors that meet those investment preferences as well as their deals. After they find the short list, they can cross-reference reviews from verified investors to validate what they're hearing from the GP. The other end of the GP, it's helping them build trust through transparency in a traditionally private world.
Okay, and I know most of our listeners are going to know some of these acronyms you just used, but I always like to give a preface beforehand, just in case we have some new listeners, some of those doctors, attorneys, business owners who are just now dipping their toes into the alternative space, right?
Yep.
So cover GP, cover LP, and lay a little bit of a foundation for what you just said.
Yeah, for sure. So if you think about this is a partnership structure, the GP is the person you are investing with, the LP is you, the investor, at the most basic level. And so what we've done is essentially created a place where those investors can share their experiences from investing with those operators, if you will.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. So that's great. If that is of interest to you and you want to know, how you can look for vetted, not vetted by Invest Clearly, but vetted by other investors who've invested with them, stick around because that's what we're going to get to. But Pat, tell me how you got started. What were you doing that eventually led you to Invest Clearly? Because I'm sure you didn't pop out of your mother's womb and say, I want to connect LPs and GPs in a vetted manner.
Yeah. So it was really a three-pronged journey that got me here. My background is in corporate America. I was a sales rep for a company who really specialized in what I would say where business services meets technology. And so the company was called Gartner, and they are like an objective and unbiased IT research and advisory firm. And so in my role there, I would support the advisory side of startup CEOs. But one of the subsidiaries that Gartner had was actually a review site in the software world. And so what would happen in this business is chief information officers that are looking to make major purchases would go and read reviews that were left by other technology leaders to help them evaluate vendors. And
Mm,
really the essence of the company I worked for was it was complete objectivity, neutrality, right? It wasn't Gartner recommending someone over another. It wasn't, I mean, at times I guess they did, but like in terms of it was an aggregate of information based on the user experience. When I left Gartner, I actually went to go work for a commercial real estate investor, and
okay.
so this individual was like quickly becoming the ranks in social media, mastermind groups, things like that. Very quickly learned that he was not the person that he was projecting,
Mm,
and let's just say. I can't talk about this in detail too much yet. That time will come, but a whole bunch of fraud came out of that.
mm,
And
yep.
so along
Which
that
is not
journey,
is unfortunately is more common than you would hope in the
yeah,
space that we operate in.
yeah, 100%. And like, you know, I'll get to that point, but like the purpose of when I learned about what was going on, I shared it with my inner circle, but I wasn't able to prevent it on a some of the catastrophe on a large scale. And so
Mhm,
like just kind of keep that in mind as my story continues. But when I was leaving that commercial real estate investor, I started a sales consulting firm. And one of my clients was actually an accredited investor lead gen service. So they would sell services like funnels and digital ads and stuff
yep.
for syndicators.
I've been
And so
pitched those a few times.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I would talk to a number of different GPs
Mhm,
in a given week within the same asset class, and I had no idea how to differentiate between any of them. And
mhm,
so at the same time, I was considering becoming an LP. And so I was like, okay, well, let me find a place where everyone existed one place so I could start to make comparisons. That didn't exist. And I was like, okay, let me find some reviews on these GPs. That didn't exist. And then I was like, okay, well, let me do some education that really helped me understand how to evaluate these GPs. And everything I would find was actually created by the GP. So I was like,
That's
okay,
great for them.
I was like,
Very curated personality that people are finding.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, you can't blame them, right? It's
Oh, yeah.
marketing, but it's like it wasn't objective in my opinion, and so I was like,
Correct.
okay, I've got this experience with Gartner on the objectivity side of things and advisory side of things. I've got the experience that I wish I could have prevented for myself and others with
Mhm.
this commercial real estate investor, and I've got the need that I was looking for. So like, let's build invest clearly, and that was the full journey there.
Okay, okay, so that was the foundation to get you here.
Yeah.
What was, like, the catalyst that actually made it happen? Did you meet somebody? Did you come across, like, someone asking it, or was this basically, like, entirely all of that drove you to start this yourself, or was there some outside influence that kinda sparked it for you?
Yeah, it was, I would say, yeah, it's a good question. It was definitely the three things, but like the actual spark, it was just like a continuous conversation of pain we recognized when we
Mm,
were selling the lead gen services, where
okay.
we were like, and that's sort of again, if we want to go off on a tangent here, like the value of creating a services company is when you're consulting, you actually find additional like opportunities that you may not have thought of previously. But when I was talking
Yep.
to all these GPs, I kind of got like, uh, a view behind the curtains on some of them, good and bad.
Mhm.
And then I also saw a lot of people who had two businesses, one syndicating or raising capital and one coaching mastermind education, where they were educating and coaching and developing masterminds on their real estate while their real estate was underperforming. And so
Mm.
like
Yep.
it just didn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? And then at the same time, I would talk to other GPs that have been around for 15 years, always outperforming projections, but were digitally inept, so they were virtually unheard of.
Yeah.
So I
Yep.
was like, this is
No
wild. Like they're
footprint, yeah.
they're exactly, and they're losing attention simply because they don't have the marketing dollars to compete with some of these bigger guys that, you know, whatever may not be performing as well. And so
Yep.
like when I started recognizing these things, me and my partner who was doing the sales consulting with me, it started out slow. Like, let's ideate, let's look, like, does this actually exist? And then it was just like, let's go.
Okay. Alright.
Yeah.
So, man, that's I like that because what you saw, you actually experienced that need, right? You
Yeah.
experienced "Oh, man, this guy is really not who he says he is." For one reason or another, I have limited ability to let people know that. Um, and so, a bad actor, let's just say, is able to continually raise from new people when maybe their prior investors are not happy with them, but there's not really a platform for that to, get out or to be shared, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, that was it. And alternatively, like our mission with Invest Clearly was not to turn into the GP Reaper, but to like show the differences
yes,
between, hey, this is what's
the
actually
GP Reaper, I like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. I should like trademark that. I've said that. I love saying that. But what's interesting is it's easy to, what I would say, validate like financial experiences. Like this was this, right?
Hmm.
Like you raised this, you exited for this. But everything in between didn't exist. What was
Yep.
communication like? Was that experience actually true? You know what I mean? Like I talked to somebody one time when we were building this platform that was like, oh yeah, hey, I invested with this person. I got a 30% return in 12 months, but I'll never invest with them again. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, why? It's like, well, because the company, the asset was actually on the verge of failure, and like a miracle happened. But
Oh.
how is that? How is that going to be marketed? It's a 30%
And for the
return. So like,
next decade, the GP is going to be able to tout that as a major
yeah,
success,
and it
even
would
if
be
it was total
validated.
luck.
And it would be validated. Like you run the background check, like it's going to come up as that was the
Yeah.
real return. But like, what is the actual qualitative experience? And that's what I couldn't find.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's, yeah, because man, there's so many. Really, the only way you can find something bad on a GP, like what to your point was everything they're going to curate themselves was all themselves. So it's all going to be
hmm
positive, right?
hmm
Whether it was real or whether it was not real, it's just going to be positive. And the only time you'd find something bad is if something went to a lawsuit, right? But there's
yeah,
a big gap between like lawsuit and good.
yeah,
There's that whole area in the middle of, and I was listening to, your podcast. So if you're an LP and you're looking for, some other, additional info on other GPs, the Invest Clearly podcast with Pat's great. But one of your guests was talking about how, um, he just like, you couldn't get any sort of communication, right?
yeah,
And that's separate from, like, to your point of, well, is it actually going well or is it not? And
yeah,
sometimes that means it's not, right? I think you were saying, we had monthly updates and it went to quarterly updates and it
yeah,
went to like, two times a year, then you couldn't get a hold of anybody.
yeah,
And so that's a major thing when you have, $100,000, $250,000 with somebody, you'd kind of like to be able to know what's going on.
yeah.
And
That's
if you
actually the
can't,
biggest. Like when we analyze our reviews, it is, and the LPs I talk to, the worst part about the position that I'm in is like I hear terrible stories. You know what I mean?
mhm.
And again, my goal is not just to beat down on the bad stories and to highlight the good GPs out there, but like when I talk to LPs and the negative reviews on our site, they're mostly around communication. Like people obviously bring up loss, but they're more frustrated that they can't get a hold of the person operating it. They
Yep.
can't, like, they don't know what's going on. Hey, I've heard like this might be going good, but I'm kind of writing it off because I haven't heard from this person.
Mm,
And it's pretty brutal, where it's like it seems like it's an easy thing to address, an easy thing to
yeah.
lead on, like just communicate, but that's what people are upset with the most.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, man. Like, as I'm thinking about this, like, I know I have a couple of like probably like really large topics I want to cover. So, like, I want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
talk about what you do, obviously from the LP side, the passive investor, which I think is the most important side. But then I do want to get into like talking to GPs because
yeah,
this doesn't exist in the GP world. Like, Invest Clearly is the first person to be. Y'all are the first people to do this, and I mean, I think it's great timing because I'm trying to remember who I was listening to. I listen to a lot of like business podcasts um and this is not a knock on you, but they're talking about like one of the largest factors of success is not necessarily hard work, it's timing. And your timing is impeccable
yeah,
because
yeah,
we've just had like this biggest up run of syndications over the last decade and a half, and then the market turned and all the syndicators who, what's the term, a rising tide lifts all boats, right?
yeah,
All the mediocre syndicators, even the ones that weren't very good, they could eke through when the market's rising, and the tide went out, right? And so now you have passive investors who are super wary. They've
yeah,
lost money. They have money that's locked up, like you said. They're writing it off, but don't know what's going to happen. And from what I've heard from many people, is raising money in this market is significantly more difficult than it used to be, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not everybody's win-win winning right now. So I think your timing is great. I think that's awesome. So let's start with the LP side, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about like, and you gave the overview, but like, what is it that you're doing to that is helpful for an LP, right? Because like I'm a small business owner. I've been a small business owner for a long time. Before I was a small business owner, I worked for a small business.
Yeah.
And so, we were doing, Google business locations. We were trying to get reviews. It was Yelp. It was, whatever we could do to get reviews, but that was common
Yeah.
in the local business world, right?
Mhm.
Um, it was uncommon, obviously, in what you're doing. So dive into a little bit more detail of like what you are doing for the LPs right now.
For sure. And the biggest value prop to the LP is what we're doing is we are providing them, again, I mentioned this before, the qualitative experience of other
Hmm.
investors. But as it relates to, say, some of these comparable like review sites, like the Google My Business, the things like that, if you really think about it, like we're trying to eliminate, almost like democratize access to information. Like for example, a lot of this exists in paid forums, paid communities, paid masterminds. What we feel about that is LPs should not be paying for information like subpar and incomplete information
Hmm.
based around how many people those masterminds or groups or forums can sign up to pay. So we've made this completely free to the LP. You don't even need to
Yep.
create an account on Invest Clearly for the LP to read the reviews. The second layer of it is in terms of like Google My Business, those are pretty unverified in terms of who's writing them. Anybody can write
Yep.
them. And I noticed this in other communities where when we would be like essentially campaigning for reviews, and I would notice that in this forum, the one person that wrote a negative comment on this GP has had a dormant account for 4 years, and the only person they're connected with is someone you're assigned when you sign up for an account. It's like, how do you trust that sentiment? Right? You go on Reddit, how do you know those are actually from investors and not bashing people or whatever it is? So we actually verify
Yep.
the investor. And so when you think about what we're trying to do is we are trying to minimize the noise, right? And try to bring actual experiences. And again, reviews are subjective. They're subjective
Yep.
based on the individual's experience. So, like, we are 100% not a start and stop due diligence tool. It's part of your process, and you should read these
Hmm.
reviews as a part of a holistic DD strategy. But if we can at least verify that the experience you're reading is coming from someone who truly invested with the individual, it's really going to help you with your evaluation process. And in all honesty, like the value of the LP is sort of the value I needed. I am not an analytical guy.
Hmm.
So like I am also what I would call an easy sell. And so like so like I
Sales
get on the
guys,
phone
I've
with
heard,
someone.
are some of the easiest sales,
Yeah,
because we
dude.
want we want to buy.
Yeah,
You want to
even with
believe
Invest
this great
Clearly.
thing is going to fix everything, and yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Even with Invest Clearly, someone tells me a new feature. I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. I have to build this now. And like I go to my co-founder, like, dude, chill out. But like I can get sold very easy on calls and
Hmm.
I'm not good at underwriting. And so like I needed that layer of support where it's actually outside the influence of the person who has the most to gain financially if I make a commitment. And so that is the big one is like when you're doing your DD or you're doing your evaluation, are you getting your information outside of the person who's influencing, who has the most to gain by your
Yeah.
next action? And
Yeah.
that's the goal here.
Yeah, that's so true, man. I just totally avoid sales calls. That's like
Yeah.
that is my defense.
Yeah.
Is just no, I don't want to talk to you at all
Yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
sure you're going to find a way to make me want what you have,
Yeah. For sure.
and I don't want to get in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it all. I get it all the time. I say, I tell people usually when you think about like a disc profile, I'm like a lethally high I, which is the social side. So I just, all other risk goes out the window. But like, luckily I have good partners that kind of bring me back down to earth. And it was like, all right,
Okay.
yep.
Yes. So what is because I mean there's a lot of factors here. It's like, yes, this is a great tool for LPs to use as part of their due diligence process,
Yeah.
but it's also a tool they can use to help other LPs, right?
Yeah.
So like, what's the benefit of someone going and actually give me the process, because the process isn't the easiest to leave a review, but that's because we're used to such a digitally
Yeah.
um obscure world where I can leave a Google review on a Google business profile without even a Gmail account.
Yeah.
So tell me a little about what the process is like and why people should be leaving reviews, good or bad.
Yeah, 100%. And yes, we do introduce friction in the process, and it's intentional, right?
Yeah.
And so what I mean by that friction is we require investors to upload some sort of proof that they worked with the
Yep.
GP before a review can be published. And now that could be a variety of things. I would say the most common ones we get are screenshots of people logged into their investor portal, maybe a statement. And then when they upload these things, first of all, we don't want any personally identified information. Like,
Yeah.
don't send me your social, don't upload your K1. If you do, block out the things. But like,
Yeah.
I don't need to see how much the person invested, just that
Yeah.
if I looked at something and I said, this person would not
You mean
have
people
this.
who invested more money don't have heavier weighted reviews?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. The
Which I
way
think is
we,
good because the guy who invests $500,000 with a GP, like he's probably going to get treated different than the guy who invested $50,000. Or
yeah,
it's possible. Let's put it that way. And
we've,
so,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't know how we would this is kind of off on a tangent now. We'd like to find a way to kind of, I don't want to say, it's not weight reviews. That's not the right way to say it, but like highlight reviews that are in different stages of the investment cycle, though. Like, hey, this is a full cycle review. This is a post investment review, and so the next iteration of the site will include
Yeah,
things like
that's
that.
a good idea. Yeah, a full cycle with this GP versus
Yeah.
mid cycle versus, hey, I just sent them my money and now they won't talk to me.
Exactly.
Thing.
Yeah. Now, I also have a caveat on there where, like, hey, you don't have to go full cycle to know what's going to happen. There's usually indicators along the way. You know what I mean? Which what people want to see. But okay, I was talking. Why should LPs? So that's the process, right? Is you go in, you choose your sponsor, your GP, or operator, whatever you want to say, and you write your review. We give you a framework. You can write your review anonymously. It is not anonymous to me. But they have the ability to choose to publish there and review as verified investor. And then prior to the review being published, you upload your documentation, which we have a list of examples. I
Options.
moderate them. Yeah, I moderate it. Does this match? Can I clearly see this person's name, the GP's, whatever they're in a position? If for some reason it's off, I reach out to the LP and help them kind of get it figured out. Now, what's interesting about that is when you think about like the LP journey and the ease of writing a review, the amount of people that I have actually, the mindset of a lot of people is like, oh, I have, my investor base is an older audience. They're not going to be able to find something. There's been a minimal amount of times where I haven't been, actually, I don't think any, like a zero, I don't know. I've had to go back and forth with people before, but I can't think of a time where I wasn't able to solve it with the investor, especially if they were kind of digitally, I'd say, disadvantaged, but
digitally disadvantaged. Yeah, that's a great.
yeah.
That's the most politically correct way to say to say that.
Most people really, value the friction, and I've had LPs like, because I always reach out and I'm like, I'm really sorry to be a pain, but like I have to take this really seriously. This didn't match up. That didn't match up, and people are like, I appreciate it, and this actually gives more confidence to me when I'm reading the reviews.
Yeah,
and so the friction is intentional. It's not like monumental, but it's enough where like we can cut down on, the noise, right? It's like actual experiences. But yeah, LPs helping LPs, I would say that's really the essence of the site, right? Like I cannot incentivize someone to write a review, right? There are people that will write reviews, there are people that won't write reviews.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So like our tagline is effectively just LPs helping create a safer investment ecosystem. You write a review, someone does the same for you, the community grows. And that's what it's really focused on. That does land with some people. Some people will just go there, browse, never leave a review. That's okay too. Maybe the timing isn't right. Maybe they're not confident about something. But yeah, it's entirely up to them.
Yeah. That's so what are some of the, if someone's like, oh man, I need to go leave this review, what is the most common like thing you see where you have to reach out? Is it they're investing in an entity and they're giving their personal information, or they're not verifying that? What's the most common, misses that you have to fix when someone's leaving a review?
It's usually related to the name. It is. Most of the time, it's if they send me a screenshot of their investor portal, their name is cut off. So I have to say like, hey, can you just expand the screenshot a little bit more? Because what I kind of look for why shouldn't I accept this first? Meaning like,
Yep.
okay, this person's name wasn't on here. Did maybe somebody sent them this? Like, how can I prove someone didn't send them this?
Yep.
And that is not 99.9% of the cases that it will never be that reason, but it's kind of like how I have to think. And
Yep.
then I'll reach out, hey, expand this, or yeah, that's been an entity name. Hey, do you have anything that actually shows your name in it? Um, those are the main ones. Some people have just been wildly off. Um, but or sometimes people's they may look at our site and see that the name is displayed as first name last initial, so they'll enter that into their actual profile name. And so I have to
Mm,
go back and say, hey, the name on your account has to match the name on the verification documents, and then it displays on this way automatically. And so I kind of like
okay.
coach people through that.
Okay. Cool. All right. And I like it. It's LPs helping LPs. And like at the same
Yeah,
time, it's just making the more reviews you get, the better Invest Clearly is.
yeah,
Right. So sure, it's self-serving, but it's self-serving in a way that serves others.
yeah.
Uh, right. So what's to keep a GP from writing their own reviews?
Yeah, good question. So first, I moderate all of them. I moderate
Okay.
everything. I usually, I try to do as much due diligence as possible, but we also have a like it's happened. Like
Mhm.
it has been published, but I've caught multiple. You know what I mean? Or and I've had to reach out and say, hey, look, this is a conflict of interest. We can't. You can't publish this. But we've also implemented like a checkbox that oddly has been sort of like self-policing at the end of the review where it says, hey, check here that you're not a capital raiser or a an internal employee of this company. And like people have actually stopped their reviews based on that checkbox.
Yep.
Um, on the other hand, when GPs claim their profile, and I can get into what that is, it
Yep.
actually prevents their company from loading in the search bar of the writer review. I think we can
Okay.
improve. I think we can improve on that because it seems to confuse people. Because like GPs continue to reach out to me, be like, "Hey, I'm trying to go through the process of writing a review for my investors, and my name isn't popping up. What's going on here?" And I have to explain, like, "Hey, we do that intentionally. Everyone else in the world can see it. It just kind of prevents you from writing a review on
Yeah.
yourself."
So they could
Um,
log out, go to the website and find it, and then like
yeah,
share a link, but
yeah,
they can't be logged in, to their own account as a GP.
exactly. Like for example, as the admin of the Clotein profile, you wouldn't be able to load Clotein into the write a review bar on
Yep.
Invest Clearly. It would just not
Yep.
show up, but all of it would show up for everyone else.
Yep. That makes sense. I think we had that conversation. You just
Yeah,
like sent me a
probably.
link, right? And I
Yeah,
just sent the
yeah,
link out to our investors. Okay, so I like that. Tell me about like there's a lot of GPs out there that they're used to the world where they controlled their 100%, public
yeah.
profile, right? What do you say to those guys? And let's not even separate the good and the bad guys, right? Because there's really two different conversations. What's the pitch? What's the benefit? What's the reason to, reach out and create your own profile and start, soliciting reviews from your own investors?
Yeah. So right now, I mean, I don't know why I just started this with right now, but the site exists where where GP profiles exist whether they participate or not. And
Okay.
so if a GP knows about us, doesn't like us, they still have a profile and LPs can still review them.
And
And
who
so
creates that profile initially then? Like, are
yeah,
y'all
so
trying to aggregate it, or was that like a first
yep.
person to try to leave a review
Yeah,
can create the
all of the
profile?
above. Like
Okay.
early days, we kind of aggregated a list.
Mhm.
And then now we're sort of at a growth phase where people are just submitting like left and right, and then
Okay.
I get it created. These could be people submitting themselves. These could be people, LPs that want to write reviews. They could just be people looking for information that hasn't seen anything yet. So like, and then I get it created. Um, but yeah, so there's that side of things, and then that is the nature of our business, right? Is like we're taking a historically private industry and opening it up.
Yep.
Now, what's interesting about this is, regardless of us, this is happening behind closed doors. It is happening in forums. What we're allowing the GPs to do is get involved in the conversation on a public manner. So
Mhm.
effectively, LPs write reviews on a GP profile. GPs can respond. Right? That's the way we're handling it, good, bad, um, either way. And so it's
Yep.
almost like, you know, what there may be this perception, this experience of how an investor felt with investing with you. Like, how are you handling that? How are you
Yeah.
responding to that? That's just as important to the investor. And what's interesting is we actually built that feature because investors were looking for it, not because GPs wanted to respond. And so LPs essentially told me, like, at scale, like,
Yeah.
after we leave a review, we want to see the way they respond to it. That's almost as important. And
Oh
so,
yeah. Yeah.
do people like that we are essentially allowing people to review them in public? Some do. Some are
Yeah.
behind it all the way because they're standing out. Others definitely not.
Yeah.
And we knew that going into this.
Yeah. I had this is something that has stuck with me. I had an old sales manager who basically told me, he's like, "Hey, Jared, it's not if something goes wrong, because it
Yeah,
always will. It's when it goes wrong, how do you handle it?"
yeah,
Right. And I've carried that with me for a decade and a half.
yeah,
And, it just has served me super well in fixing client issues, you know, saying, "Hey, yeah, that got messed up. And here's what I'm doing to fix that for you."
yeah.
And that sometimes creates the most rabid client fans,
Hmm.
right? If everything goes perfect, okay, half the people expect it to go perfect.
Yeah, yeah,
um, but when something happens and they see you go above and beyond to make it right, that person will that's the person who will leave reviews, who will refer you nonstop,
100%.
who becomes your evangelist.
Yeah,
And I have a couple of those in my real estate business where, I've funny story, but like early in my career, like I was a young real estate agent. I was helping someone buy this like $400,000 house. So that's about average for our market. But as a young agent, new to the business, that was
yeah.
like the
You're cleaning
biggest
up. Yeah,
deal. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make like a, $12,000 commission on this. I mean, this is going to be huge for me. And, they had asked, it was brand new home, and they asked if the fridge was included, because they like, well, the description said a fridge was included. I was like, oh yeah, if the builder says it's included, it's included. Well, they read that on Zillow somewhere. Guess what happened? After asking me like 4 times if the fridge was included and
it
me saying
wasn't
yes,
included.
guess what
Yeah,
happened?
yeah.
When under contract, there's no fridge.
Oh,
And
jeez.
so, you know, I'm have to, I'm going to my wife's like, oh my gosh, there's no fridge. Like, I have to now, like, the right thing to do is to go buy a fridge for this person. Like,
Yeah,
figure out what was supposed to be there, talk to the builder, give them a fridge. And so I had to call this couple and be like, hey, I made a mistake. I'm going to make it right. They're not including the fridge. I'm going to buy you a fridge. Just straight off the bat, no blame shifting, none of this. That person, I have now sold or helped sell or buy a home for every person in their family except their
yeah,
daughter, who doesn't live in Texas.
yeah, yeah,
Right. So it's like, man, that $1,000 fridge probably came back to me 100-fold.
yeah,
And so, um, and they still are referring me to this day. I have, like 2 active clients that they referred to me, and this happened 7 years ago.
yeah.
So,
It's the value of integrity, I would say, is like, and what's interesting when you draw the parallels to what's going on in the industry is the reflection in our reviews is not the expectation that the operator is perfect. Like,
yep.
they know there are good operators that may have gotten into bad deals, and their reviews reflect that. It's not like an emotional dump if they got an overcooked cheeseburger that they're leaving a review on a restaurant. It's like, hey,
Thanks,
it's
Yelp.
like, hey, they're underperforming. They're communicating. I don't know what the outcome is going to be. It's like an actually contextualized
Mm,
review. Granted, some are wild in nature, but like, for the most part, if you think about kind of aligning to what you're talking about, like, the integrity's there, if the ownership is there, if the accountability is there,
yeah.
the review is not going to be like a chainsaw. It's a
Yeah.
genuine experience. You know what I mean?
So you're kind of answering this question, but I was already thinking this, so I want to ask it specifically. What do you tell the GP who, like, a good person, they're honest, they're trustworthy, and they just got into a bad deal? And I've had some guys that I get together with occasionally. I'm like, hey guys, check this out, invest clearly, and they're like, and they're coming in the multifamily space, right? So multifamily's been hammered, and they're like, oh man, I
Yeah,
don't know if I want to ask for public reviews right now.
yeah,
But they're good people, they're trustworthy, there's no fraud. It's a bad deal that
yeah,
they're struggling with, that, some of it was in their control, some of it was out of their control, some of it was totally unforeseen, but at the end of the day, they're the GP, right?
sure.
So what's the conversation with that type of guy?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly said it to everybody, right? Like I say it to literally everybody. There is a world that exists where you're going to get a bad review. It's like
Yep.
if that is not indicative of the experience of investing with you, if this was an off chance, you should have no problem collecting good reviews from raving fans, right? That's
Yep.
one side of things. The other side of things is the company we really modeled this off of is called G2,
Me
billion-dollar
too.
company, software review site, and they had a study come out that saying people find like more trust in companies that don't have a perfect track record with the reviews. Like
Yeah.
if you get a bad review, it's almost as trusting. It's more trusting than if you had a
It
perfect track record.
validates the
Yeah,
profile in
but
itself almost.
the most important thing is like we exist regardless. So like your journey, again, maybe not now, maybe we're not big enough, but a time in the future we will be where like your investors may find us outside of your asking them, and
Yeah.
the investor that had a bad experience may represent you that way.
They're the
And if that's
most likely person to leave a review unsolicited.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
like if you do say if that's the one deal and you have hundreds or thousands of investors that are happy, why wouldn't you, ask them to write reviews on you? Um that's it, it's yeah, that's kind of the way I feel. It's like if this is not, if you're getting this review, if it's more than likely inevitable that it'll happen, but it's
Yeah.
not indicative of the real investor experience, then the other side should also be represented. Like the good
Yeah.
investors should be representing you as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is another question that just kind of popped into my head. So you
Yeah.
mentioned you're modeled after G2,
Yeah.
which is probably 99% of the population has never heard of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so on one hand, because I remember when I was just talking with you about it initially, I was like, oh, well, you're like X or you're like Y.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
the like worst comparison you've heard, and tell me why? Is it being compared to Yelp? Is it
You know
being
what's
compared to BBB? Like,
Yeah,
uh,
I didn't okay, so I guess it's being compared to Yelp, but I didn't know that that was a bad comparison to draw. So I started saying it. I was like using that as a tagline because everybody knows Yelp, and then I have a friend in the restaurant industry that like hit me up and
yeah,
was like, "Do not say that again," because apparently like the Yelp business model is super predatory, and I didn't
yeah,
know that. And so he's like, "Dude, like stop now. Like call it anything else."
yeah. And to be fair to you, um, the general consumer, I don't think knows that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
GPs and the small business owners who are going to hate it if
Yeah.
Yelp is given as the comparison.
Yeah.
Because I was managing Yelp profiles for this small business I worked for, and dude, I swear they would call and ask if you wanted to advertise, and if you said no, you would have
They
reviews
would
that were on
bury
your profile, and they would go to the unrecommended section, which is at the bottom of the recommended reviews that is in a little gray lettering, which like nobody knows exists.
That's wild.
So we had like 8 recommended reviews and like 70 unrecommended
Oh,
reviews.
wow.
And that will switch sometimes on like, well, why do I have more? Why do I have less? Um, so yes, for the general consumer, Yelp probably makes the most immediate sense.
Yeah.
But for the GPs, they hate it, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
I
yeah,
think the
yeah, yeah.
idea, and so it is like that. That is honestly that's what I thought of too. But
Yeah.
the benefit is that you are verifying every single person who leaves a review, unlike Yelp, where
Yeah,
hey, I came through and I ordered and I didn't get it, and I didn't pay for anything, or I just didn't like the color of the cashier's hair,
exactly.
and that's not even a paying customer,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
okay, that's good. Man, what have we not covered that you might think is important for someone to understand or know or to think about?
Yeah, I think the most important is how we make money because it
Yeah, that's a good.
actually like because one the biggest concern to everyone, and I brought this up, is the
Mhm.
third party objectivity side of things. Like how are we And so let me just explain how we don't make money. So we don't
That's
take
good.
yeah, you can't invest on our site. We don't sell leads, and we're not registered with any regulatory agency. We don't take a piece of the deal, right? So like if an investor finds in a GP on Invest Clearly never gives them money, it does not matter to us, right?
Okay.
Is not what we do. GPs cannot uh, edit reviews, take down reviews. It's there's no editorial like ability.
Control. Yeah.
Oh, with the GP. Yeah. And so the way we actually make money and how we remain objective, because if you really think about this, the LP is our user, but also kind of our product, right? Like if we didn't have LPs coming to the site and leaving reviews, then GPs wouldn't be interested in the model that I'm going to explain in a second. So
Yeah.
the second we compromise any sort of objectivity, the LP will trust us, they won't use our site, and then the whole thing will go under. So like we cannot compromise any sort of objectivity. We can't show any sort of favoritism. Again, under the
Yep.
FTC, Federal Trade Commission, which is who overseas review sites. You can't show any favoritism. You can't take, whatever. Um, and so the way we make money is effectively by what we call as like profile upgrades. So GPs can claim their profile for free, right? They go in, they say, hey, this is my company. Let me update some of the information Pat wasn't able to find publicly. Let me use some of the free tools. And then we have upgraded profiles. And what the upgraded profiles are effectively branding and behavioral analytics and like what I would call like call to action buttons. For example, the
Mm.
value prop to the to the GP is, hey, look, we've had 33,000 visitors hit our site in the last 6 months. You've had 500 people hit your profile. They have from your profile, they have clicked onto somebody else's profile. If you had this button where you embedded your calendar in here, they're looking for information on here, so you can upgrade your profile to add your decks, add videos. You could pin reviews. You can use like our widget tools. So it's effectively like, what do you want LPs to see when they are hitting your profile? Right? Is like how
Uh-huh.
do you how do you capture them by being great, but they can't not actually like reach out to them, or it has to be driven by the LP. And so
Okay.
that's really, I would say, if you want the 10,000 foot view, just to show that like there's no way to influence the
Yeah.
reviews or sell or compromise like the LP. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's great. So what you're telling people there, our listeners, is that the LP doesn't have control over any of the reviews, review content, editorial control of the reviews. You do make money by letting them basically make their profiles more robust.
Exactly.
So if for some reason that is concerning to a listener or an LP, you can go and you can find the rinkiest, stinkiest profile, and you know they're not paying anything,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you can go find the one that has the videos and has the clicks, but is obviously providing more information. And you do know they're spending some money, but you also know that, okay, well, they're just spending their money to make their profile more usable for me, and that's
Yeah.
really what's happening.
Yep. And if you write a review on those paid
Yep.
profiles, doesn't matter. It stays up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
A negative review, like that's just how it is.
Okay. Well, tell me, what about this? I mean, I kind of want to hear any success stories. And I know like most of our listeners are going to be LPs, passive investors, right? High net worth individuals.
Yep.
Maybe you get some GPs out there who are just kind of interested in what's going on or listening to other people. But any like interesting success stories you have from GPs who like maybe jumped straight in, and I don't know what kind of feedback you might be getting from them. You know, anybody's has anybody been able to like come back to you and be like, oh, hey, like this investor invested because of they
Yeah.
found the reviews, or what else? Like what kind of
Yeah.
success are you seeing right now?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So we've had a couple people on the podcast, GPs, that have actually shared like, hey, I have actually closed investors from Invest Clearly. And what's interesting is the way GPs usually find us is through that process. Like, oh, hey, I found you on Invest Clearly. Like the GP may have no idea who
So
we
what?
are, and then but yeah, exactly. And the coolest one, I would say, I don't think this is scalable. I'll probably never be able to tell the story again. But someone reached out to me and was like, hey, I just had an investor. Never booked a call with me, signed the accreditation docs, wired money because of what they saw on Invest Clearly. I was like, first of all, that's madness. Like that is a madness evaluation process. But it's still pretty cool for
Yeah,
me to
that's
think
like
like,
the blind squirrel finds a nut like once in a
exactly.
million years. Like it
Yeah, yeah,
happens, but you
yeah,
can't ever think it's going to happen to you.
yeah. No, but beyond that, like the way GPs really use us is what I would say is like a conversion tool, right? Like
Yep.
it's like, hey, you don't know if you want to invest with me versus competitor ABC. Like we've got 10 objective reviews that I can't control whether or not they come up, where investors went through multiple processes to endorse us. Like go check out the reviews.
Yeah.
And then obviously that's what turns into like the top of the funnel stuff where, hey, like people are now finding me on Invest Clearly, things like that.
Okay. All right. Now I'm going to switch a little bit. Maybe, you said Invest Clearly should be a part of an investor's tool bag, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that you are not a due diligence expert.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, I don't know. The kind of the funny thing is, if you say expert, it just means you're better than like the average
Anyone. Yeah.
person. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in some rooms, you're going to be the expert. In some rooms, you won't be.
For sure.
So the new investors, again, that are dipping their toes into the alternative space, what do you tell them? Because you've already said, hey, you can't just look at these reviews. What other things would you recommend an LP do when they're vetting not only maybe a GP, but also a general deal, right? And that's kind of too vague of a question, because is it drilling an oil and gas well, or is it
Yeah.
a debt fund? But
Yeah.
talk about some of that for those newbies, because you do know a lot more than them, and you are operating in the due diligence space to a degree. Not you
For sure.
personally, but you're offering a service that people can use.
Yeah, and it's so funny you bring up the oil and gas thing, because I'm seeing like a rise in investor interest in oil and gas. I've had a bunch of investors on the podcast, and I do ask, is like, hey, what is your now that you're underwriting like assets plus operations, like what is that due diligence process like compared to a traditional just real estate deal?
Yeah.
And so that leads me to my answer, is just like talk to as many people as humanly possible. Like if you don't know if a deal is good, reach out to people, essentially create a network. I had someone on the podcast, her name was Layla, and she is a professional LP. She's in like 40 something
Yeah.
deals.
Yeah.
And the one thing she said is the biggest aspect of her growth was building a network of investors to lean on. Like
Yeah.
that's what it is. And so for someone like me, if I was
I got on
looking
her
at
newsletter.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's I really like her because, like I said, I'm not the analytical person, but she is like an analyst that I would say makes things fun. Like
Mm.
it's not the dry financial
Economist
reporting.
style.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But she's like snarky and it's in there. I like it. Um, but like for someone like me, is I would lean into that network, right? Like for us, well, the way I think about due diligence is there's really two pieces of it. There's the deal, the horse, and then there's the jockey, the GP. So
Mhm.
like you've got to kind of separate those two things. Is like, yes, this could be a great deal, but is this the right person to operate the deal? And then, or hey, this deal has maybe a few red flags. Am I willing to align that risk profile to the person who I think can turn it around based on ABC, right? Like I actually had somebody talking recently on the podcast where they talked how like I think it was risk should align to experience,
Mm.
meaning he essentially thinks of risk as a spectrum and then balances that risk against the operator and makes his decision that way. And so that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. So like
But
a
the most,
super experienced operator, you're going to trust with a riskier operation.
yeah, and
Is
like
that
his
the what you're
returns,
saying?
yeah, and the returns should
Have to be
reflect that. You
associated.
know what
Yeah.
I mean? Yeah, exactly. And then, but that's my biggest recommendation is like, don't do it alone if you're not confident.
Yeah.
Leverage every tool possible. Separate how you think about the deal versus how you think about the operator, and then thinking about them together. And then again, I'll say this a million times: get outside of the influence of the people that have the most to gain financially, like
Yeah.
by your action. You know what I mean? That's the most
Yeah.
important thing. Don't be afraid to ask questions, hard questions, and then like the biggest thing I'm hearing from people now is maximize deal flow, because there are opportunities out there, and like
Yeah.
don't think this is the only thing that's going to be in front of you.
Yeah, man, I was having who was I talking with the other day, but like sometimes, and I was guilty of this in like the single family space, where I was like looking at real estate flips, and I was like,
Yeah,
and I had a buddy, a mentor of mine, who was like, Jared, you can't, like, you should not approach everything trying to make it work.
yeah,
You should have some like really big thresholds that if
yeah,
it can't cross that or cover the initial concerns, you
yeah,
just quit looking at it.
100%.
Because
Yeah,
especially those people who are salesy, they're entrepreneurs, they want to do it. Like they get emotionally excited. And sometimes a better approach is not looking for the red flags, but looking for the green flags. And if you can't
yeah,
find the green flags, then
yeah,
it's not a thing for you.
yeah. These investors that I talk to who have like 45 to 200 deals under their belt will tell me that like they underwrite a deal within 2 minutes,
Mm.
and whether it's a yes or no, and then that essentially is leads to the next stage. Like I look at this, I see everything I wouldn't like about it, and then it's done in 2 minutes. I don't waste time on it if it doesn't hit
Yeah.
my I don't know, it's KPIs, benchmark, something like that. And then
Yeah,
if it
whatever their investor goals are that.
exactly,
Yeah.
and then they
Okay,
move on
so
to the ones that do.
yeah, I'm going to give a quick pitch for the passive investor event. So, what you have, Pat, is a great tool that people can use and utilize. But what you were also recommending is find people who are not financially incentivized for that deal and like
Yeah,
talk to people. So,
yeah,
and I don't even know if I've shared this with you, but I have a buddy here in Texas. He runs a group of accredited investors, Keith Blackborg. And so one of the new things he's doing for the general public rather than that private group, right? Because we're a small private group. There's like 70 of us. We get together like twice a year. And yeah, inside our group, we're like spoiled accredited investors where we only
yeah,
see the very best of the best of the best, and not only the best, GPs, but some of the best splits,
yeah,
not everyone has access to that.
yeah,
And so one thing he started doing that was open to the general public was this thing called the passive investor event. So it's PIE, PIE.
yeah,
And that's in Texas. And so that's a place that if you want to learn more about passive investing, figuring out what your goals are, figuring out, what your plan should be, because part of what Pat was talking about is that risk profile. If you're a 35-year-old, making $500,000, your risk profile is way different than the couple in their 70s
yeah,
who are living off their assets,
yep,
but who are also, and I have clients across the spectrum. So one of your very first filters should just be understanding what type of investment that you're looking for.
yeah.
Because I'm also, I don't know about you, Pat, you might be the same. It sounds like a little bit, but I'm like the shiny object guy, like
Oh,
shiny
big
object
time.
syndrome. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, that looks cool. Oh, that looks cool.
yeah,
What? Oh, a gold mine in New Mexico? I want to go look
yeah,
at that.
yeah.
Real story. I flew out there with a buddy and spent a whole day driving around the desert of New Mexico with the GP. And at the end of the day, it was like, I think any dollars I give him, I need to expect to be gone.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I had someone
so
recently was like, "Hey, can I put a whiskey barrel fund on Invest Clearly?" I was like, "That sounds like the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life." And it's like, "No, I gotta just real estate right now. I gotta focus on this someday."
whiskey barrel
Yeah,
fun. So, okay, well, cool, man. One of the things that I think is kind of fun and kind of goofy, but I think helpful, is what you do near the end of your podcast, and you say, "Hey, what is something in passive investing that needs to die?"
yeah,
So, I want to ask you, what is something that you see that needs to die in this space?
yeah. So I actually just talked about this when we might create like a piece of content around this, but my opinion of what needs to die is GPs putting clauses in their operating agreements that prevents investors from talking about their experience. I am
Oh my gosh,
seeing
yeah,
blanket threats of litigation across forums and groups where GPs are threatening their own investors for
that's
violating
crazy.
the terms of their agreement that say, "Hey, you are not allowed to talk about this anywhere." I've never seen one of these agreements, so I don't know the exact terms, but just my
Okay,
opinion is like
I agree.
I think that's madness, you
Yeah.
know.
That's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
and like my first question, that people get is like, well, can they actually do that? But then there's the question of like, well, could they sue me or could they take away my interest? And really it's like people can do all sorts of things.
Yeah.
You can get sued for anything.
Yeah.
And until you have, a third party person, like a judge or an arbitration or something, it's just a huge headache. Like,
100%. Yeah.
people, I could see where people would not speak out because they have 100 grand. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know they could get sued and it's all sorts, man, that's
People bring
nuts.
that up to me all the time. Like if you think about the number one reason people are afraid to write reviews is they're said like, "Hey,
Like
I still have money
libel
with them
or,
and I want to be able to exit." Like they're
yeah,
afraid of the inability to get their money back.
yeah.
What again? It's usually what little money is coming to them. But yeah,
Which is
they're
part
afraid
of
of it.
the reason you allow for 100% anonymous reviews that are still verified by you.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Dude, this was great. Anything else that you think would be a kind of a lasting tidbit or helpful information as we kind of wrap this up?
No, I think that's it, man. We covered quite a bit. It was a lot of fun. Nothing I could really think of. If investors are looking at it, feel free to check out the site. Or they're looking for
We'll have a link in the
investments.
show notes. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. If you've worked with an investor, I'm sorry, with a GP, feel free to write a review. yeah, that's really it.
Okay. Well, what if a GP has questions and wants to talk to you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah,
Is that
anybody can reach
website?
out.
Is it LinkedIn?
Yep. Website is investclearly.com. I'm active on LinkedIn. My email is pat@investclearly.com.
Okay.
This is literally my life, so I will respond to
Okay.
you.
And anyone looking for additional content around other, types of investments or GPs and content, Pat has a great podcast. I've been listening to all of them. It's the Invest Clearly podcast. Is that
Yep.
just
Yep.
Google that and you're going to find it?
That's it. You should. Yeah.
So
Hopefully. Yeah.
yeah. Well, final thing that I think is really interesting is you are seeing, and we're seeing it as well. You're seeing the Invest Clearly profile for lots of GPs ranking
Yeah.
first page of Google already,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
like, how old's your company? Like 2
We're
years?
yeah. Not even. Well. Yeah. Kind of. Yeah. We're
Yeah.
at like 2 year mark around. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but I mean that's pretty crazy for you know first page Google
I
results
know.
that fast.
Yeah. That's honestly our North Star now is how heavily can we impact that? Because
Yeah,
we think if we solidify our place there, we could change the industry. Like that is essentially what we're focusing on. Number one right now is organic search results and like AI search results. And it's
yeah.
working, which is really cool.
Yes, that's kind of a side note, but I have my real estate business and then I have the fund that I work with. And so my real estate business, I am finding that a lot of the stuff I've done over the years is I'm ranking as the top recommendation in my area
That's cool.
um, for like ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
And so Google search results, I actually, and it's kind of hard to test yourself, right? So typically I'm
Yeah.
going to like an incognito page
That's
and
what I did too.
just seeing what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
Um, but it's pretty cool because there's a lot of factors that play into this. And I think y'all are going to be touching on a lot of those points, especially as review count grows, it's more activity on the site. So
Yeah.
I think that's exciting for you guys. I think it's a great product. And if you're an LP, I would encourage you to go leave some reviews for investors and GPs you've worked with, good and bad. I heard a stat that like if you have a bad experience, like on average, the person with a bad experience tells 15 people, and the person with a good experience only tells like 3 or
Yeah.
5, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say, hey, let's help balance that out.
Yeah.
We need those people who've had good reviews and have good GPs to go leave good
Yeah.
reviews, right?
Yeah. It's important.
So that's my call to action for everyone today. Go leave some reviews on Invest Clearly. Subscribe to the podcast. Hit the follow button, whatever medium you're operating on. And dude, Pat, thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thanks, Jared. This is fun.
Bye. Okay, now before I get into my final thoughts on Pat and Invest Clearly, I do want to say that the Passive Investor event is later this month. So if that's something you're interested in, go to the description below, check out that link, and grab your tickets before it's too late. Now, Pat and Invest Clearly, man, what an awesome product Pat has. Not only do I enjoy talking to Pat and think he's a great guy, I think what they have created was something that is super needed in that investing space, particularly in these alternative assets, because like we said in the show, and specifically Pat, was that so much of these general partners persona was self-curated. You can always say whatever you want, share the best experiences, and Invest Clearly is designed to help investors like you get the real truth and real experiences from real investors. So my call to action for you right now is not about a due diligence guide. It's to go check out his website. If you have experiences with some general partners, good and bad, go leave a couple of reviews. If you are considering investing with a general partner or a fund or syndication, go look for their profile, see if they have one. If they don't, add it even if you don't have anything to add. Let's make sure that this continues to be built out for the benefit of everyone. So thanks for being here today, and I will talk to you next time.